The billionaire's heart stopped when the poor little girl pointed at the painting of his lost son and said, "Sir, this boy lived with me at the orphanage." His face turned pale. Could she really know where his son was? Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The rain hammered against the tall windows of the Harrison mansion like 1,000 desperate fingers trying to get in. William Harrison stood in his study, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand, staring at the oil painting that dominated the wall. His son, Tommy. 4 years old in that portrait, with those bright green eyes and that mischievous smile that could light up a room. But Tommy wasn't 4 anymore. He would be 6 now, if he was still alive. 2 years. 730 days since that afternoon in Riverside Park, when Will had turned his back for just a moment, just one moment, to take an urgent business call. When he'd turned around, Tommy was gone, vanished, as if the earth had swallowed him whole. The police had searched everywhere. The FBI had been involved. Will had spent millions on private investigators, rewards, publicity campaigns. Nothing, not a single credible lead, just empty hope and sleepless nights that stretched into an eternity of guilt and grief. The doorbell rang, cutting through his dark thoughts. Will frowned. It was nearly 8 o'clock on a Wednesday evening, and he wasn't expecting anyone. His housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, had already left for the day. He heard his assistant Marcus answer the door downstairs, voices murmuring. "Mr. Harrison." Marcus appeared at the study door, looking uncomfortable. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a little girl here. She says she needs to speak with you. She's soaking wet from the rain, sir. She looks like she's been through something difficult." "A little girl?" Will set down his glass. "Marcus, what is this about? Did she say why she's here?" "She says it's about your son, sir." The words hit Will like a physical blow. His heart began to race. How many false leads had he chased over the past 2 years? How many cruel hoaxes, well-meaning but mistaken tips, and outright scams had he endured? He'd learned to protect himself, to not let hope destroy him over and over again. But still, what if? "Send her up," he said quietly. A minute later, a small figure appeared in the doorway. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old, with tangled dark hair plastered to her head from the rain. Her clothes were worn and too thin for the cold weather, a faded pink jacket with a broken zipper and jeans with holes in the knees. But it was her eyes that struck him. Large, brown, and filled with an odd mixture of fear and determination that seemed far too old for such a young child. "Hello," Will said gently, crouching down to her level despite his expensive suit. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma," she whispered, her small hands clutching the straps of a dirty backpack. "Emma Collins." "Emma, my assistant said you wanted to talk to me about my son. What do you know about Tommy?" The girl's eyes darted around the room, taking in the expensive furniture, the rows of leather-bound books, the modern art on the walls. Then her gaze fixed on the portrait. She walked toward it as if in a trance, stopping just a few feet away. Her small finger rose, pointing at Tommy's smiling face. "That boy," she said, her voice trembling. "I know him." Will's breath caught in his throat. "What did you say?" Emma turned to face him, and tears were streaming down her cheeks, mixing with the rainwater still dripping from her hair. "That boy in the painting, his name is Tommy, isn't it?" "Tommy Harrison." "Yes," Will managed to say, his own voice breaking. "That's my son. He disappeared 2 years ago. How do you know him?" "Because," Emma said, and the words that came next made William Harrison's world tilt on its axis. "He lives with me at St. Mary's Orphanage. I know him. We share a room in the old wing. He's there right now." Will's legs nearly gave out. He gripped the edge of his desk to steady himself. That's not possible. We searched every orphanage, every shelter, every..." He's there, Emma insisted, her small chin jutting out with certainty. I see him every day. But, sir, she hesitated, her expression darkening with something that looked like fear. Sir, there's something wrong. Something very, very wrong at St. Mary's. And Tommy, he doesn't remember who he is. The room spun. Will's heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst from his chest. After 2 years of searching, of emptiness, of grief that threatened to consume him, could it be true? Could his son really be alive? And if so, what had happened to him? Why didn't he remember? Emma, Will said, his voice raw with emotion and desperate hope. You need to tell me everything, everything you know about Tommy. And about this orphanage. But before Emma could answer, she suddenly looked toward the darkened window, her eyes going wide with terror. They'll be looking for me, she whispered. I ran away to find you. Mrs. Davies, the director, she doesn't know I'm gone. But when she finds out... Emma's small body trembled. Sir, if she knows I told you about Tommy, she'll make him disappear again. And this time, you'll never find him. Will moved quickly, his business instincts kicking in despite the emotional storm raging inside him. Marcus, he called out, get the car ready and call Dr. Patterson. Tell her I need her at the house immediately. Emma flinched at his raised voice, and Will immediately softened his tone. It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now. But you're cold and wet, and I need to make sure you're all right. Then you're going to tell me everything about Tommy. Everything. 20 minutes later, Emma sat wrapped in a thick blanket on the sofa in Will's living room, holding a cup of hot chocolate. Dr. Sarah Patterson, Will's personal physician and one of his oldest friends, had examined her and stepped aside to speak with Will privately. She's malnourished, Sarah said in a low voice, her expression troubled. Not severely, but consistently. She has bruises on her arms, some old, some new. The pattern suggests restraint, not typical childhood accidents. Will, wherever this child came from, it wasn't good. Will's jaw clenched. St. Mary's Orphanage. That's where she says Tommy is. Sarah's eyes widened. Will, don't get your hopes up too high. You've been through this before. She knew his name, Sarah. She pointed at the portrait and knew his name. She described him. Will's voice cracked. What if it's really him? Before Sarah could respond, Emma's small voice called out, Mr. Harrison? I can hear you, you know, and I'm telling the truth. Tommy is real. He's my friend. Will returned to the living room and sat across from Emma. I believe you, Emma, but I need you to help me understand. Tell me about Tommy. When did you meet him? Emma took a sip of hot chocolate, her small hands trembling slightly. About 1.5 years ago, he just appeared one day in the boys' dormitory. Mrs. Davies said he was a new arrival, that his parents had died and nobody wanted him. But Tommy, he was different from the other kids. He was confused all the time. He couldn't remember anything about his life before. He has amnesia. Will leaned forward, his heart pounding. I don't know that word, Emma said. But he doesn't remember anything. Not his real name, not his parents, nothing. Mrs. Davies gave him a new name, Jacob Miller. She said he needed to forget his old life and start over. Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. But sometimes, late at night, I hear him crying. He says he has dreams about a man with a kind voice and a big house with lots of light. He says it feels real, but Mrs. Davies tells him he's just making things up. Tears streamed down Will's face. He remembered singing Tommy to sleep every night, remembered the sunshine streaming through the nursery windows. How did you know his real name was Tommy? Emma reached into her backpack and pulled out something small and dirty. She handed it to Will. It was a child's ID bracelet, tarnished and bent, but still readable. Engraved on it were the words, Tommy Harrison, and a phone number. Will's old phone number from before the kidnapping. He wears this hidden under his sleeve, Emma explained. "He doesn't know what it means, but he won't let anyone take it. He says it's the only thing that feels like it belongs to him. One day, when we were cleaning the dormitory, I saw it fall out of his pocket. I read the name. That's when I knew." Will clutched the bracelet like a lifeline. "Emma, why didn't you tell someone? Why didn't you go to the police?" Emma's eyes filled with fear. "Because Mrs. Davies has friends. Important friends. The police came once when another kid tried to run away, and Mrs. Davies talked to them. They laughed together and left. The kid who ran away. We never saw him again. Mrs. Davies said he got adopted, but—" She trailed off, and the implications hung heavy in the air. "That's why I had to find you myself," Emma continued. "I saved money from doing extra chores. People give coins sometimes. It took me 4 months. Then I saw your picture in an old newspaper in Mrs. Davies's office. The article was about your company, and it had this address. So tonight, when everyone was asleep, I climbed out the window and ran." Will's heart swelled with admiration for this brave little girl. "Emma, you're incredibly courageous, and I promise you, I'm going to get Tommy out of there, and I'm going to make sure you're safe too." But even as he said it, a cold dread settled in his stomach. If what Emma said was true, if Mrs. Davies had connections if children disappeared, then this wasn't going to be as simple as calling the police. He would need to be smart, strategic, because if he made one wrong move, he might lose Tommy forever. The next morning, Will sat in his study with Marcus and Daniel Chen, his head of security and private investigation. Will had filled them in on everything Emma had told him, and Daniel had immediately begun digging into St. Mary's Orphanage. "This place is a ghost," Daniel said, spreading documents across Will's desk. "St. Mary's Orphanage officially closed down 12 years ago due to code violations. But according to public records, the building was never sold or demolished. It just exists. No official operations, no licensing, nothing." "Then how is it still running?" Marcus asked. "That's the question, isn't it?" Daniel pulled up a photograph on his tablet. "This is Constance Davies. She was the director when St. Mary's closed. Before that, she worked at 3 other institutions, all of which shut down amid investigations into missing children and financial irregularities. But she was never charged with anything. Each time, the investigations mysteriously stalled." Will stared at the photograph. Constance Davies was a severe-looking woman in her 60s, with steel-grey hair pulled back in a tight bun and cold, calculating eyes. "How does someone like this keep operating?" "Money and connections," Daniel said grimly. "I did some deeper digging. Davies has ties to several prominent figures in the city. Judges, police commissioners, even a congressman. She's clever, she keeps a low profile, never draws too much attention, and the children she acquires. They're all from vulnerable backgrounds. Runaways, kids from broken homes, children nobody's actively looking for." "Except Tommy," Will said, his voice tight. "People were looking for Tommy. Everyone was looking for him." Daniel nodded. "Which means she took a huge risk taking him. The question is why? And how did she manage to hide him in plain sight for 2 years when we searched every orphanage in the state? Because St. Mary's wasn't officially an orphanage anymore," Marcus realized. "It wouldn't have been on any list. It was invisible." Will stood and walked to the window, his mind racing. "I want 24-hour surveillance on that building. I want to know everyone who goes in and out. I want to know where Davies goes, who she meets with. Everything." "Already arranged," Daniel said. "My team is setting up now. But Will, I have to warn you, if we move too fast, if she gets even a hint that you know about Tommy, she could move him, or worse." The words sent ice through Will's veins. "Then we need to be careful. We need evidence, leverage, something that will guarantee Tommy's safety when we make our move." "There's something else," Daniel said hesitantly. I found records of several wealthy families who lost children around the same time Tommy disappeared. Different cities, different circumstances, but all children from affluent backgrounds. All vanished without a trace. I'm wondering if this is bigger than we thought, Will finished. His stomach turned. If Davies is part of some kind of network. It's just a theory, Daniel cautioned. But if it's true, we're not just dealing with one corrupt director. We could be up against something much larger and more organized. Will turned back to face them, his expression hardening with determination. Then we gather evidence. We document everything. And when we have enough to bury her and anyone working with her, we strike. But first, I need to see him. I need to see my son. That's too dangerous, Marcus objected. If she recognizes you. She won't, Will interrupted. I've lost weight. My hair is different. It's been 2 years, and I won't get close. I just need to see him with my own eyes. I need to know Emma was right. Daniel exchanged a glance with Marcus, then sighed. All right, there's a park 3 blocks from St. Mary's. According to the limited surveillance we have, the children are sometimes taken there for supervised outdoor time. If we're lucky, Tommy will be in the next group. But you keep your distance, understand? Just look. Don't approach. Will nodded, though every fibre of his being screamed to run to St. Mary's right now and tear the building apart with his bare hands until he found his son. But he had to be smart, patient, because Emma was right. One wrong move, and Tommy would disappear again. And this time, Will knew he wouldn't survive it. 2 days of surveillance passed like an eternity. Will barely slept, spending his nights poring over Daniel's reports and his days anxiously awaiting updates. Emma stayed in the guest room under Sarah's watchful care. The little girl was slowly beginning to trust them, though she still startled at sudden movements and hoarded food under her pillow. On the 3rd day, Daniel's call finally came. They're bringing the children to the park, now. Will was out the door in seconds. He drove himself, despite Marcus's protests, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. The park was unremarkable, a small patch of grass with some rusty playground equipment and a few weathered benches. Daniel was waiting near a tree line, dressed in running clothes, pretending to stretch. They're on the west side, Daniel murmured as Will approached, keeping his voice low. Don't stare, don't react, just look casual. Will's eyes scanned the park until he found them. A group of about 15 children, ranging in age from maybe 5 to 12, accompanied by 2 stern-looking women. The children were quiet, too quiet. They didn't run and play like normal kids. They stood in a loose cluster, occasionally glancing at the playground equipment but not touching it, as if waiting for permission that never came. And then Will saw him. He was taller than in the portrait, his hair a bit darker, but those eyes, those green eyes, were unmistakable. Tommy stood slightly apart from the other children, his hands shoved in the pockets of an ill-fitting jacket. His expression was distant, almost vacant, as if he was physically present, but mentally somewhere far away. Will's breath caught. His son. His baby boy was right there, less than 50 yards away, and Will couldn't run to him, couldn't call his name, couldn't sweep him up in his arms the way every cell in his body demanded. He had to just stand there and watch. Tommy suddenly looked in Will's direction, as if sensing the weight of someone's gaze. For a moment, their eyes met across the distance. Will's heart stopped. Did Tommy recognize him? Was there any spark of memory, any unconscious connection? But Tommy's expression didn't change. He looked at Will with the same blank curiosity he might give any stranger, then turned away to watch a bird pecking at the grass. It took every ounce of Will's self-control not to break down right there. His son didn't know him, didn't remember him. 2 years of Tommy's childhood, stolen. 2 years of memories, gone. Mr. Harrison, Daniel said softly, urgently. One of the supervisors is looking this way. We need to go. Will forced himself to turn away, to walk back to his car like a normal person out for a stroll in the park. But inside, he was breaking apart. He sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel, and finally allowed himself to cry, great, wrenching sobs of grief and rage and determination. When he finally composed himself, he called Daniel. "I need a plan, a real plan. I don't care what it costs or how long it takes. I'm getting him out of there." "Already working on it," Daniel replied, "but there's something you should know. While you were watching Tommy, I was watching the supervisors. One of them got a phone call and stepped away. I managed to get close enough to overhear. Will, she was talking about a transfer. She mentioned 3 children by name, including Jacob Miller. She said they'd be ready for pickup next week." Will's blood ran cold. "Transfer? To where?" "I don't know yet, but whatever it is, it's happening soon. If we're going to move, we need to move fast." Will's mind raced. They needed more information, more evidence, but they were running out of time. "Set up a meeting with my lawyer. I want to know every legal option we have. And Daniel, find out where that transfer is going. I don't care what you have to do. We're not losing him again." As Will drove back to the mansion, his phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Emma wants to talk to you. She says it's urgent. She remembered something important about Mrs. Davies." Will pressed harder on the accelerator. Every piece of information could be crucial now. He'd seen his son, confirmed he was alive, but Tommy was still trapped in a nightmare, and time was running out. Emma was waiting in Will's study when he returned, looking small and anxious in one of the large leather chairs. Sarah stood nearby, her expression concerned. "Emma says she remembered something," Sarah explained. "Something about Mrs. Davies's office." Will knelt down beside Emma's chair. "What is it, sweetheart? What did you remember?" Emma's voice was barely above a whisper. "There's a room, behind a bookshelf in Mrs. Davies's office. I saw her go in there once when she thought nobody was watching. The bookshelf swung open like a door. What was in the room?" Will asked gently. "I don't know. She closed it before I could see, but—" Emma hesitated, her small hands twisting together. "But I heard things. Sometimes, late at night, when Mrs. Davies thinks everyone is asleep, I hear her on the phone in her office. The walls are thin in the old wing. She talks about children, their names, their ages, where they came from, and she talks about money, lots of money." Will exchanged a dark look with Sarah. "What else do you hear?" "She mentions names, important names. Last week, I heard her talking to someone she called Judge Morrison. She was angry, saying that she'd kept her end of the bargain and that she expected payment soon. And then—" Emma's voice dropped even lower. "She said something about a shipment, that the next shipment would be more valuable because it included premium acquisitions. That's what she called them, premium acquisitions." Will felt sick. The implications were horrifying. "Emma, do you know what she meant by that?" "I think," Emma said slowly, "I think she means kids like Tommy. Kids from rich families, kids people are looking for. She keeps them separate from the rest of us. Tommy doesn't sleep in the main dormitory anymore. He's in a special room with 2 other kids. A girl named Sophia, who's really quiet and never talks, and a boy named Marcus, who cries every night." Will's heart pounded. "Emma, how long have these other children been there?" "Sophia came about a year ago. Marcus came just a few months ago. Mrs. Davies keeps them away from the rest of us most of the time. She says they need special preparation." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Harrison, I'm scared for them. I'm scared for Tommy. Whatever Mrs. Davies is planning, I think it's going to happen soon. She's been acting different lately, nervous, excited. She keeps checking her phone and having whispered conversations." This aligned perfectly with what Daniel had overheard about the transfer. Will stood and pulled out his phone, immediately calling Daniel. "We have a new problem," Will said without preamble. There are at least 2 other children in Tommy's situation, likely kidnapped from wealthy families. Emma says they're being kept separate and prepared for some kind of transfer. We need to identify them. Already on it, Daniel responded. After what I overheard at the park, I started cross-referencing missing children from affluent families with the timeline Emma gave us. I found 4 cases that match the pattern, children who vanished without a trace in the last 18 months. I'm sending you the files now. Will's phone buzzed with incoming documents. He opened them on his tablet, and his heart sank. 4 beautiful children staring back at him from missing person reports. Sophia Chen, 6 years old, daughter of a tech CEO. Marcus Brennan, 7 years old, son of a federal judge. And 2 others, Lily Rodriguez, 5 years old, and David Kim, 8 years old. Emma, Will said, showing her the photos. Is this Sophia? Is this Marcus? Emma looked at the images and nodded, tears streaming down her face. That's them. They look sadder now, but that's them. What about the other 2? Do you recognize these children? Will showed her photos of Lily and David. Emma studied them carefully, then shook her head. They're not at St. Mary's. At least I've never seen them. They could have already been transferred, Daniel said over the phone. Will, this is bigger than we thought. If Davies is running a kidnapping-for-profit operation, targeting wealthy families' children and then selling them— Don't say it, Will interrupted, his voice strangled. The thought of what might have happened to those children, what might happen to Tommy if they didn't act fast, was unbearable. We need to go to the FBI, Sarah said firmly. Will, this is beyond corporate security. This is human trafficking. And if the FBI investigation spooks Davies, she'll move the children before they can be rescued, Will countered. Emma said she has connections, judges, police. What if she has FBI contacts too? What if our report tips her off? Then what do you suggest? Sarah demanded. You can't just storm in there. Actually, Daniel interrupted, maybe he can. Will, what if we don't go through official channels? What if we create a situation that forces Davies to reveal herself while we document everything? We get evidence of the crime in progress, identify her entire network, and rescue the children simultaneously. How? Will asked. We arrange to become customers, Daniel said darkly. We pose as buyers. If Davies thinks she's about to make a major sale, she'll reveal her operation. And once we have everything we need, proof, names, the whole network, then we bring in law enforcement, but we do it on our terms, when we can guarantee those children's safety. The suggestion hung in the air, dangerous and desperate. It meant getting close to pure evil, playing along with the unthinkable. But it also meant protecting Tommy and the other children from becoming lost forever. Will looked at Emma's frightened face, thought of Tommy's blank expression in the park, and made his decision. Set it up. Whatever it takes. But we move fast. If that transfer is happening next week, we have 5 days at most. Daniel worked with frightening efficiency. Within 48 hours, he had created an entire false identity for Will, Maxwell Sterling, a wealthy businessman from overseas with discreet interests and connections to people who had previously done business with Davies. The key was approaching through the right channels, with the right coded language that people in this dark world would recognize. The response came faster than expected. An encrypted email with minimal text. St. Catherine's Restaurant. Thursday, 8 p.m. Come alone. Bring proof of funds. Will sat across from Daniel and Marcus in his study, reviewing the plan for the dozenth time. He'd be wearing a wire, and Daniel's team would be positioned around the restaurant, but they all knew the risks. If she suspects anything, Marcus began. She won't, Will interrupted. I've been in hostile negotiations before. I can play the part. But inside, his stomach churned. This wasn't a business deal. This was his son's life. Thursday arrived too quickly and too slowly. Will, dressed in one of his most expensive suits, adopted the cold, entitled expression of someone who saw people as commodities and drove to St. Catherine's, an upscale establishment known for its privacy and discreet clientele. Constance Davies was already there, seated in a private booth in the back. She was exactly as she appeared in her photographs. Severe, calculating, with eyes that seemed to measure and assess everything. Across from her sat a man Will didn't recognize, heavy-set and professional-looking. "Mr. Sterling," Davies greeted him without warmth. "This is my associate, Mr. Brennan." Will's blood ran cold. Brennan. The same last name as Marcus, the little boy who cried every night. Was this... "Judge Richard Brennan," the man introduced himself, extending his hand. "I handle the legal aspects of these arrangements." A judge. Emma had been right. And if Will was correct, this was the father of one of the kidnapped children, meaning he wasn't a victim of Davies's operation. He was part of it. The realization was staggering. This man had allowed his own son to be taken to maintain the illusion of being a victim while profiting from the operation. "Shall we discuss business?" Will said, his voice steady despite his internal horror. Davies smiled, a cold reptilian expression. Direct. "I appreciate that. I understand you're looking for a very specific type of acquisition. My associate mentioned you have particular preferences." "I represent clients who value exclusivity," Will said, using the careful language Daniel had coached him on. "They're willing to pay premium prices for premium products. Children from good families, well-documented backgrounds, no difficult habits or health issues." "I have exactly what you're looking for," Davies said. 3 children, ages 6 to 7, all from affluent families, all in excellent condition. 2 have already undergone the necessary conditioning. They're docile, compliant, and ready for immediate placement. The 3rd is proving more resistant, but that can be part of the appeal for certain clients. Tommy. She was talking about Tommy. He was the resistant one, the one still fighting to remember. Will forced himself to remain expressionless, but inside he was screaming. "I'd like to see the merchandise before we discuss price," Will said. Davies's eyes narrowed. "That's not how this works. You wire half the funds up front based on documentation and photographs. Once payment clears, you receive delivery details. The remaining balance is paid upon receipt. And if the merchandise doesn't meet specifications..." "It always does," Davies said coldly. "I've been in this business for 15 years, Mr. Sterling. I've never had an unsatisfied customer. Those who try to create problems tend to disappear themselves. It's important we understand each other." The threat was clear. Will met her gaze without flinching. "I appreciate clarity. When would delivery occur?" "Sunday night," Judge Brennan interjected. "The children will be prepared and transported to a neutral location. You'll receive the coordinates once the initial payment clears." 3 days? Will had 3 days. "I'll need to verify their identities first," Will said. "My clients are very particular. They want assurance that these children are who you claim they are." Davies pulled out a tablet and slid it across the table. On the screen were photographs, clinical, heartbreaking images of 3 children, Tommy, Sophia, Marcus. They were seated against a blank wall, holding cards with numbers like prisoners. Tommy's eyes were defiant, angry. Sophia looked terrified. Little Marcus just looked broken. "As you can see," Davies said, "all 3 are in perfect condition. The documentation includes their original names, birth dates, family backgrounds, everything your clients would need to verify their value." She was selling children like livestock, complete with pedigrees. Will wanted to lunge across the table and strangle her, but he forced himself to nod professionally. "The price for all 3? $8 million, $4 million upfront, 4 upon delivery. $8 million for 3 human lives. Will thought of the other children, the ones who hadn't been premium enough. who'd been sold for less or disposed of entirely. How many had there been? How many families had been destroyed by this woman's greed? "I'll have the initial payment transferred by tomorrow," Will said, standing. "I trust you'll send the necessary account information through the usual channels." "Of course," Davies said. She stood as well, and for a moment her professional mask slipped. "Mr. Sterling, I hope you understand the importance of discretion. We've built this network carefully over many years. We have protections at every level: law enforcement, judiciary, social services. Anyone who threatens our operation finds that problems have a way of disappearing very thoroughly." It was another threat, but it was also a confession, and every word was being recorded by the wire Will wore. "I appreciate the warning," Will said, "but I assure you I'm a man who values profitable relationships. I'll be in touch." As Will walked out of the restaurant, he had to fight to keep his pace normal, his expression neutral. Only when he was back in his car, Daniel's team confirming he was clear, did he allow himself to react. "Did you get it all?" he asked Daniel over the secure line. "Every word," Daniel confirmed. "Will, she named the network. She admitted to 15 years of operation. We have Judge Brennan on recording confirming his involvement, and we have photos of the children. This is everything we need." "Contact the FBI," Will said. "But not the local office. Go straight to the Washington headquarters. Find someone with no possible connection to Davies's network, and tell them we need to move before Sunday. We have 72 hours to take down this entire operation and get those children out safely." As he drove home, Will's phone rang. It was Emma. "Mr. Harrison," she said, her voice frightened. "Something's wrong, I can feel it. Please tell me you're going to save Tommy. Please tell me you're not going to let them take him away." "I promise you, Emma," Will said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. "I'm bringing him home. I'm bringing all of them home." And Special Agent Rebecca Torres arrived at dawn Friday morning. Sharp-eyed and authoritative, she cut straight to business in Will's study. "Mr. Harrison, I've reviewed everything. This is one of the largest trafficking operations I've seen in 20 years. Davies has connections everywhere: judges, police, even a city councilman." "When do we move?" Will demanded. "She's transferring the children Sunday night. We go Saturday night, 3 a.m. Simultaneous raids on St. Mary's, Davies's home, and her network members. We'll secure all the children, not just Tommy. I'm coming with you." "No." Torres' tone was firm. "You're emotionally compromised. If Tommy sees you during the breach, it could jeopardize everything. I promise. The moment it's safe, you'll be there." Will wanted to argue, but knew she was right. What about the other missing children Emma mentioned? Lily Rodriguez and David Kim? Torres's expression darkened. "We found transaction records. They were sold internationally. Interpol is tracking them, but—" She didn't finish. The implication was clear. "This is why we move now," Torres continued. "Davies is escalating. Every day we wait puts these children at greater risk. I need you to act normal tomorrow. Go to your office, maintain your routine. Don't give Davies any reason to suspect we're coming. And keep Emma safe. She's our key witness." After Torres left, Will stared at Tommy's portrait. So close. After 2 years of searching, his son was 10 miles away. Tomorrow night, if everything went according to plan, this nightmare would end. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Mr. Sterling, I trust the account information was received. Looking forward to our transaction. C.D. Davies, confirming the fake deal." Will forwarded it to Torres, his hands trembling. The woman spoke about selling children as casually as selling merchandise. Tomorrow night, he told himself. But deep down, Will knew nothing would be simple about this rescue. Saturday morning brought grey skies and rising tension. Emma appeared at Will's study door around 11. "Mr. Harrison, after you get Tommy back, what happens to me?" Will's heart ached. "Emma, you saved my son's life. You have a home here for as long as you want. You're not going back to any orphanage. You're safe now." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Really? I promise, you and Tommy both, a real family, a real childhood." Emma hugged him fiercely. The moment was broken by Daniel bursting in, his face grave. "We have a problem." Will sent Emma to find Mrs. Chen, then turned to Daniel. "What?" "Davies moved the timeline. She's transferring the children tonight, 9 p.m. Something spooked her. Will's blood ran cold. "Tonight? The FBI isn't ready. Torres is mobilizing now, but they need 6 hours. A car with government plates was spotted near St. Mary's this morning. Davies is paranoid." Will's phone rang. "Agent Torres." "We're moving to 8 p.m., Torres said without preamble. 1 hour before her transfer, but we have a smaller tactical unit, higher risk. Davies might use the children as leverage if she realizes what's happening." "What do you need from me?" "Stay by your phone. If she reaches out to Maxwell Sterling for help, you keep her talking while we extract the children. But Will, you cannot let your emotions compromise this mission." Will swallowed hard. "I understand. My team positions at 7 p.m. Radio silence until it's done. We're bringing your son home tonight." The hours crawled by. Sarah arrived with Emma around 5. The little girl's sense tonight was critical. "Is Tommy coming home tonight?" Emma whispered. "I hope so, sweetheart. Good people are working to make it happen. I'm scared something will go wrong." "It won't," Will said, trying to sound confident. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. His stomach dropped. He put it on speaker. "Mr. Sterling?" Constance Davies's voice was tight with stress. "We need to talk. Now." Daniel activated recording software. Sarah ushered Emma out, closing the door. "Mrs. Davies," Will said calmly, "what can I do for you?" "Someone's watching my facility. Unusual vehicles, people asking questions. I'm moving the merchandise tonight, 9 o'clock, but I need full payment now, all 8 million transferred within the hour." Will's mind raced. Davies was panicking. "That's a significant change. I'll need to consult with my clients." "I don't care about your clients," Davies snapped. "Either you want the merchandise or you don't. Full payment in 1 hour, or the deal is off." A child cried in the background. "Tommy!" Will forced steadiness into his voice. "Is everything all right there?" "One of the children is being difficult. Nothing I can't handle. Your decision, Mr. Sterling." 1 hour. The line went dead. "Did Torres get that?" Will asked Daniel. "Yes. She's moving up again. They're going in at 7:30. But Will, if Davies is preparing to move them now, and the FBI is 45 minutes out, we could lose them." "Then I go there," Will said. "I tell Davies I want to inspect the merchandise before payment. I stall until the FBI arrives. She'll recognize you, not if I'm convincing. I've changed enough, and she's panicked, distracted. I can use that. If she figures out who you are, then she does. But I won't sit here while Tommy is loaded into a van." Will stood. "This is our only option." Daniel sighed. "I'm coming with you." "Me too," Sarah added. "Injured children may need medical attention." 20 minutes later, they arrived at St. Mary's, a decrepit building that looked condemned. Will's heart pounded. Tommy was inside. Daniel's phone buzzed. "Torres says 15 minutes out. She's not happy, but agrees it's the only move. Keep Davies focused on you, away from the children." Will approached the steel door and pressed the buzzer. The intercom crackled. "Who is it?" "Maxwell Sterling. I want to inspect the merchandise before final payment." A long pause. "That wasn't the arrangement." "The arrangement changed when you demanded full payment up front. I'm not transferring 8 million without verification. Let me in, Mrs. Davies, unless you want to lose the sale." Another pause. The door buzzed open. They entered a dim hallway reeking of mildew. At the corridor's end, Constance Davies emerged, disheveled, eyes wild, hand resting on something in her jacket pocket. A weapon. "You shouldn't have come," she said coldly. "This is irregular." So is demanding full payment on short notice, Will countered. I'm a businessman. I don't make $8 million transactions blind. Show me the children, I'll verify them, and I'll authorize the transfer. Davies studied him intensely. For a terrible moment, Will thought she recognized him. Then she nodded curtly. Fine, make it quick. She led them upstairs. Every step brought Will closer to Tommy. After 2 years, he was about to see his son. Will's phone vibrated. A text from Torres. Situation change. Davies called backup. Armed resistance possible. ETA 8 minutes. Get out if you can. Armed resistance. Will looked at Daniel, who'd received the same message. But Tommy was here. Will kept walking. Davies stopped at a reinforced door. She unlocked it, her voice cold. The children are in here. One has been problematic. If he acts out, don't be alarmed. The door opened, revealing a sparse room with 3 cots. And there, sitting on the middle cot, was Tommy. Will's breath caught. His son. Tommy looked up with those green eyes, taller and thinner, haunted in ways no 6-year-old should be. On the other cots sat Sophia and Marcus, both terrified. As you can see, Davies said professionally, all 3 are healthy, from documented wealthy backgrounds. I'd like to speak with them individually, Will interrupted. Verify their mental state. Davies frowned. That's not part of thorough inspection. You want 8 million in minutes, you let me do my due diligence. Davies nodded tersely. 5 minutes, I'll be right outside. She stepped into the hallway, door slightly ajar. Will knelt to Tommy's level, his heart breaking and soaring. This close, he saw fading bruises, trembling hands. How many times had Tommy been hurt here? Hello, Will whispered. My name is Max. What's yours? Tommy stared with heartbreaking eyes. Jacob, but that's not really my name. I don't know what my real name is. Behind Will, Sarah examined Sophia while Daniel watched the door. They had maybe 6 minutes. Do you remember anything about before? Will asked, barely steady. Tommy's expression flickered. Sometimes I dream. A man who sings to me, a big house with light. But Mrs. Davies says I'm making it up, that my parents died and nobody wanted me. That's not true, Will said, the words escaping. Tommy, none of that is true. Tommy's eyes widened. How do you know my name? My real name is Tommy. Recognition flickered. Tommy's hand reached out, touching Will's face tentatively, as if confirming what his heart knew. Daddy? The word was barely a whisper. Daddy, is it you? Will's cover shattered. Tears streamed as he pulled Tommy into his arms, holding his son for the first time in 2 years. Yes, baby. Yes, it's me. I'm here. I found you. Tommy clung to him, shaking with sobs. I knew you'd come. I tried to remember, but they said you weren't real. The door slammed open. Davies stood there, face twisted with rage, gun visible. You! She hissed. You're not Maxwell Sterling. You're William Harrison, the father. Her eyes went cold. You recorded our meeting. You went to the FBI. You've destroyed everything. Will stood, positioning himself between Davies and the children. Daniel shielded Sophia and Marcus. Sarah reached for her phone. Don't, Davies snapped, training the gun on Sarah. Phone's on the floor. Now. They complied. Tommy clutched Will's leg, trembling. You've made a terrible mistake, Davies said, eerily calm now. Did you think you could just walk in? I've spent 15 years building this. I have powerful friends, unlimited resources. You're just one man. It's over, Davies, Will said quietly. The FBI is surrounding this building. Your network is being dismantled. Judge Brennan, your associates, all being arrested. You have nowhere to go. Davies laughed harshly. You think I didn't plan for this? I have 6 armed men positioned throughout. The lights cut out. Tommy screamed. In the darkness, Will heard boots thundering up the stairwell, Agent Torres shouting, FBI, drop your weapon! Flashlight beams cut through darkness. Will grabbed Tommy and dove to the floor, covering his son. He heard Davis's gun clatter, her scream of rage, Torres shouting orders. When lights returned, Davis was face down, hands cuffed. 4 agents secured the room. Torres knelt beside Will and Tommy. "Mr. Harrison, are you hurt? Is the child hurt?" Will looked up, tears streaming, arms wrapped around his son. "We're okay. We're both okay." Torres smiled genuinely. "Then let's get you home. Let's take these children home." As they were escorted out past agents and frightened children being removed, Tommy clung to Will's neck. "Daddy, is it really over? Are we safe?" "Yes, baby," Will whispered, kissing his forehead. "It's over. You're coming home. You're finally coming home." The next hours blurred together. Paramedics checked all 3 children, then transported them to Children's Hospital. Will refused to leave Tommy's side. Dr. Patricia Wong examined Tommy thoroughly. "Physically, he'll recover fully," she told Will. "Signs of neglect, minor injuries, malnutrition, all treatable. But psychologically, he's experienced severe trauma. Kidnapping, captivity, being told his parents were dead, forced to forget his identity. He'll need therapy, patience, and stability." "He remembered me," Will said, watching Tommy sleep peacefully. "When I said his name, he knew me." Children are resilient. The parent-child bond is powerful. But prepare for challenges, nightmares, anxiety, difficulty trusting. This won't be easy. I don't care. He's home. That's all that matters. Whatever he needs, however long it takes. Sarah appeared with Emma, who'd been waiting anxiously. "Can I see him?" "Of course, sweetheart." Emma approached the bed tentatively. "Is he okay?" "He's going to be okay, thanks to you. You saved him, Emma. You saved all of them." Tommy's eyes opened. He looked confused briefly, then saw Will and relaxed. "Daddy, you're still here." "I'm not going anywhere ever again." Tommy noticed Emma and smiled, his first genuine smile. "Emma, you're here too." "I told your dad about you." "I helped him find you." "Thank you. You're the best friend ever." Later, Agent Torres arrived with updates. Sophia and Marcus have been reunited with their families. Judge Brennan and 6 network members arrested. 12 other children from St. Mary's are being processed. Many are likely missing children whose cases never gained traction. We'll work to reunite them. Torres spoke quietly with Will privately. "We also have intel on Lily Rodriguez and David Kim. Interpol tracked them to Eastern Europe. They're executing a rescue operation now. There's real hope we can bring them home." "And Davies?" "Over 100 charges across multiple jurisdictions. She'll spend life in prison. Her network is destroyed, assets frozen. It's over." Will felt immense relief. "Thank you for everything. You brought my son back." "You brought him back, Mr. Harrison. You never gave up." Later, alone with Tommy, Will sat beside his hospital bed. "Daddy?" Tommy asked uncertainly. "What happens now? Where do we go?" "Home." "To our house, your room. I kept everything exactly as you left it. Your toys, books, everything. You'll have therapy to help with memories, time to heal. And Emma is coming with us. She's family now, too." "Really? Emma's going to live with us?" "If she wants to. She saved your life, Tommy. She deserves a real home just like you." Tommy was quiet, processing. Then, "Daddy, in my dreams, you used to sing to me. Can you sing now?" Will's voice broke as he began the lullaby he'd sung every night before Tommy was taken, a gentle melody about stars and moonlight and love that never ends. Tommy's eyes drooped, his small hand in Will's, and for the first time in 2 years, both slept peacefully. The nightmare was finally over. The healing could begin. 3 months later, Will stood in the doorway of Tommy's bedroom, watching his son sleep peacefully. The nightmares had become less frequent. The fear in Tommy's eyes had slowly been replaced by something Will had been desperately hoping to see again: trust and joy. and childhood. The room looked different now. Tommy had wanted to redecorate, saying the old decor felt like it belonged to someone else. Together, they'd painted the walls a bright blue, hung new posters of superheroes and dinosaurs, and filled the shelves with books Tommy picked out himself. It was a fresh start, but one that honored who Tommy had been and who he was becoming. Dr. Michelle Reeves, Tommy's therapist, had warned Will that recovery wouldn't be linear. There would be good days and setbacks, moments of progress and moments of regression, but slowly, steadily, Tommy was healing. He'd started at a new school 2 weeks ago, and yesterday he'd come home excited about making a friend. Such a small thing, but to Will, it was everything. Down the hall, Emma's door was decorated with colourful drawings she'd made in her art therapy sessions. The adoption papers had been finalised last week. Emma Collins Harrison. She'd cried when the judge made it official, and Will had cried too. This brave little girl who'd risked everything to save a boy she barely knew now had a forever home. She had a brother, she had a father, she had everything she deserved. Mr. Harrison. Mrs. Chen appeared at his side. "There's someone here to see you, Agent Torres." Will found Rebecca Torres in his study, looking more relaxed than he'd ever seen her. "Rebecca, this is a surprise. Is everything all right?" "More than all right," she said, smiling broadly. "I wanted to tell you in person. We found them, Lily Rodriguez and David Kim. The Interpol operation was successful. Both children are safe and being reunited with their families as we speak." Will felt his eyes well up. "All of them? Every child? Every single one? 15 children from St. Mary's have been returned to their families. Davies's entire network has been dismantled. We've made arrests in 6 countries. And because of the evidence you helped us gather, we've identified and shut down 3 other similar operations. Will, you didn't just save your son. You saved dozens of children." The weight of those words settled over Will. He'd spent 2 years in darkness, consumed by grief and desperation. He'd never imagined that his search for Tommy would lead to saving so many other families from the same nightmare. "There's something else," Torres continued. "We finally pieced together exactly what happened the day Tommy was taken. Davies had been watching you for weeks. She knew your routine, knew you'd be at Riverside Park that day. She had an accomplice, a woman posing as a nanny, who distracted you with a fake emergency phone call about a fire at your office. While you were focused on the call, Davies's team grabbed Tommy. They had a van waiting 2 blocks away. Within 20 minutes, Tommy was at St. Mary's." Will's hands clenched. "All that time I blame myself. I thought if I'd just been watching more carefully, you couldn't have prevented it," Torres said firmly. "They were professionals. They'd done this before. You were targeted, Will, but you also never gave up. And that determination saved your son's life." After Torres left, Will walked to the back porch where Emma and Tommy were playing in the yard. Emma was pushing Tommy on the new swing set, both of them laughing, the sound of his children's laughter, something Will had feared he'd never hear again, filled him with overwhelming gratitude. Tommy noticed him and jumped off the swing, running over. "Daddy, come play with us." "In a minute, buddy. Actually, I have something I want to talk to you both about." They gathered on the porch steps, Emma on one side and Tommy on the other. Will wrapped his arms around both of them. "I just got some wonderful news," Will said. "Remember those other children we talked about, Lily and David? Agent Torres just told me they've been found. They're safe now, going home to their families." Emma's eyes widened. "Really? They're all okay? They're all okay? Every single child from St. Mary's is safe now?" Tommy was quiet for a moment, processing. Then he said, "Daddy, sometimes I still feel sad about what happened. Is that okay?" Will pulled him closer. "Of course it's okay, Tommy. What happened to you was terrible, and those feelings won't just disappear. But every day they'll get a little bit easier. And you know what helps? Having people who love you around you." People like Emma and Mrs. Chen and Dr. Reeves and me, we're all here for you, always. And we're a family now, Emma added quietly, a real family. The best family, Will agreed, his voice thick with emotion. That evening, as Will tucked both children into bed, Tommy asked him to sing the lullaby, the one about stars and moonlight and love that never ends. As Will's voice filled the room, Emma joined in, having learned the words over the past months. Their voices blended together, creating something new and beautiful. When the song ended, Tommy looked at his father with those bright green eyes, no longer haunted but healing. "Daddy, I'm glad you never stopped looking for me." "I never would have stopped," Will whispered. "Not ever, because you're my son, and I love you more than anything in this world. I love you too, Daddy, and Emma, and our family." As Will turned off the light and closed the door, he paused in the hallway. Through the door, he could hear Emma and Tommy talking quietly, giggling about something. Siblings, friends, survivors. Will walked to his study and stood before the portrait of 4-year-old Tommy, the painting that had hung on his wall for 2 years, a constant reminder of what he'd lost. Tomorrow he would take it down, not because he wanted to forget, but because he no longer needed to live in the past. Tommy was here, alive, healing. Emma was here, finally safe and loved. They were a family, broken, reassembled, and stronger for it. Will's phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "How are my favorite people doing?" He smiled and typed back, "We're home. We're finally home." And it was true. After 2 years of searching through darkness, of grief that threatened to consume him, of hope that refused to die, Will had found his way back to the light. Not just him, all of them. The nightmare had ended. The healing continued. And every day forward would be a gift, a second chance at the life that had been stolen, now reclaimed with fierce love and unwavering determination. Will looked out the window at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, other families were being reunited, other children were coming home. And somewhere, a little girl, who'd been brave enough to run through the rain to save a friend she barely knew, was sleeping peacefully, finally safe. This was what mattered. Not the wealth, not the success, not any of the things Will had once thought defined him. This love, family, second chances, and the courage to never give up, this was everything. As Will turned off the study light and headed upstairs, he heard Tommy call out softly, "Daddy, can you check the closet?" "I thought I heard something." Will smiled. Normal childhood fears, normal requests, normal life. He opened Tommy's door. "Let me check, buddy." He dramatically opened the closet, pretending to investigate thoroughly. All clear, no monsters here. "Thanks, Daddy," Tommy said, already relaxing back into his pillow. "Any time, son, any time." And as Will closed the door once more, he realized that these simple, ordinary moments, were the miracles he'd been praying for. Not grand gestures or dramatic rescues, but the quiet, everyday moments of being a father, of being there, of being home. The story that had begun with a desperate search and a little girl's courage had become a story of hope, redemption, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Some stories don't have happy endings, but this one did. Not because everything was perfect, but because love had won. Because a father never gave up. Because a little girl was brave enough to speak up. Because sometimes, against all odds, lost things are found. And sometimes, the family you create becomes the greatest gift of all.